Dr. T.K. Prabhakar. Today we are going to talk about one of the metabolic disorders, diabetes mellitus. So we are going to start a series of lectures in which we will talk about different biochemical disorders and its pathophysiology. So today we are going to talk about diabetes mellitus. This is not a new word for us. So we are knowing about diabetes mellitus since ancient words. And initially diabetes mellitus was called as, in Hindi or in Sanskrit, it's called as Madhumeha or Madhumeha. Its literal meaning is sweet urine. In ancient worlds, in ancient times, when people pass out their urines and ants came near to the urine because of the sweetness, so they thought that there is something sweet in the urine, and they called it Madhumeha or Madhumeha. Now it is called as diabetes mellitus. So the literal meaning of diabetes mellitus is diabetes means it's called siphon. Siphon means too much urine pass out, and mellitus means sweet. So if you see both, it means sweet urine pass out. That is called as Madhumeha or Madhumeha. We'll see the details, and if you see slowly we'll go. So the diabetes mellitus, if it is increasing very fast nowadays. So if you see the diabetes mellitus, it is third leading cause of death. If you include all the diabetes mellitus and its secondary complications, so it is third leading cause of death. But if you talk only about diabetes mellitus, not secondary complications, then its rank is 7th in the death. This is third one. So first two is heart attack or cardiovascular disorder, that is the first one, and the second one is cancer. After heart attack and cancer, diabetes is the third leading cause of death. In this case, diabetes mellitus, the main problem is we are unable to use glucose. Your cells are unable to use glucose. So that's why we are having, it is characterized by hyperglycemia, means blood will have more amount of glucose, more number of glucose molecules in the body. So its condition is hyperglycemia, and it is caused because of either insufficient or inefficient insulin. So either body does not produce in sufficient amount, as much as amount we require in the body, so that much amount of insulin is not produced, so that's insufficient insulin. Or if body produces insulin, but that insulin is not able to work function, so it's called inefficient insulin. So these are the two major reasons why diabetes mellitus occurs. This diabetes mellitus, mainly glucose is not going to be metabolized, and glucose is the ultimate source of energy in our body. Almost all the cells uses glucose, and that glucose gives you other biomolecules also, other metabolites also. So if glucose is not going to be metabolized, so glucose will be accumulated in our body, and because of that one, other biomolecules, other metabolites, biochemical metabolic processes will also going to be affected. So in the case of diabetes mellitus, not only carbohydrate metabolic process is going to be hampered, affected or stalled, it is going to affect protein metabolic pathway also, it is going to affect lipid metabolic pathway also, it is going to affect nucleotide metabolic pathway also, because glucose gives you acetyl coenzyme through glycolysis and PDH reaction. So we get acetyl coenzyme, and you know that acetyl coenzyme is the source for lipid synthesis. Acetyl coenzyme is the source for amino acid synthesis, and through HMP-SUN pathway we get pentose sugar, that is for nucleotide metabolic pathway, nucleotide synthesis. So if glucose is not going to be metabolized, not going to be processed, so all other metabolic processes will be affected. So in case of diabetes mellitus, not only glucose, not only carbohydrate, other metabolic process is also going to be affected. The next point is it causes, because glucose is going to be used by almost all the cells. So if glucose will not be used, so ultimately slowly glucose, high amount of glucose going to cause, going to affect all the body parts slowly, but most commonly, most preferably, it is going to affect the peripheral organs plus those organs, those tissue where we are having microcapillaries. Otherwise, diabetes mellitus causes two types of abnormality that we will see in the diabetic complications. It's called as microvascular complications and macrovascular complications. Means those capillaries where thick capillaries is there, those organs where thin capillaries are there. So it's called microvascular and macrovascular complications. One significant terms we are going to use, that is called as scarcity in plenty. It means scarcity means deficiency, and plenty means we are having sufficient amount. This is the condition in case of diabetes mellitus. As you have, I have told you, diabetes mellitus is characterized by hyperglycemia. We want glucose. Every cell needs glucose, but there are sufficient amount of glucose is available, but cells are unable to use it. So it's called as scarcity in plenty. We are having sufficient amount of glucose, but cells still are unable to use it. This is similar type of situation as we are in between the sea and we cannot drink that water. So inside the sea we are dying because of thirst. So that is called as scarcity in plenty. Now if we'll see the growth of diabetes mellitus, prevalence of diabetes. So diabetes mellitus is one of the most fastest growing non-communicable disease. If you see the top 10 list, normally every year's American Diabetic Association along with World Diabetic Federation releases a atlas, that is called as Diabetic Atlas. Every year they release it, and in that one they produces the list of different country and the prevalences. So if you see the list, in the top 10 list, top 10 country, India is in the top, and the expectation by 2030 or 2035 India will be on the top. And if you see the top 10 list, most of the country are from the Asian region, like India number 1, China number 2, third number is US, fourth number is Indonesia, fifth number Japan, sixth number Pakistan, then Russia, then Brazil, Italy and Bangladesh. These are the top 10 countries. Most of the country belonging to the Asian region, and the main reason for this, why Asian countries are having more diabetes, that is because of sedentary lifespan. Sedentary lifespan means we are stagnant, we are not doing too much of physical activity, too much of moving. So sedentary lifespan, then more intake of fast food, then less physical activity. So these are the different main reasons why Asian country, because we were not using fast food too much earlier. So now we have moved towards fast food, taking off too much of fast foods. We are starting because using computer, we are using laptops, we are using online shoppings. So physical activity we are doing very less. So less physical activity, sedentary lifespan and more intake of fast foods. These are some of the important reasons why diabetes mellitus is more prevalent in Asian regions, Asian country. Then how to diagnose diabetes? How I can understand that a person is having diabetes? So for that one, American Diabetic Association and WHO has given some criteria, some points. On the basis of those points, we can identify a person that we can call him diabetic or we can call him non-diabetic. So there are 3 points. The point number 1, if a person is having fasting blood sugar level, so fasting blood sugar, fasting we are calling it normally 8 to 10 hours of fasting. Preferably it will be overnight fasting because in the night we are not doing any kind of physical activity. So fasting means minimum 8 to 12 hours of fasting. So if a person's fasting blood sugar level will be more than or equal to 126 mg per dl, it is called. So if any person's fasting blood sugar level will be equal to or more than 126 mg per dl, we can call him, we can suspect him a diabetic. Or second criteria is if a person is having symptoms of diabetic. Symptoms of diabetic, I am coming there. What are the different symptoms? So along with symptoms, if his casual means any time of the day, we can take blood sample and we can go for glucose estimation. So that is called casual blood sugar should be equal to or more than 200 mg per dl along with symptom. That is an important point. So he should have diabetic symptoms plus casual blood sugar level should be equal to or more than 200 mg per dl. We can suspect, we can call him diabetic mellitus. Or third, we can go for postprandial blood sugar, means we can give him sufficient natural normal food or 175 gram of glucose, oral glucose, and then after 2 hours, post 2 hours of postprandial, means 2 hour postprandial blood sugar, will give him food or will give him 75 gram of glucose and then take blood sugar. That postprandial blood sugar will be equal to or more than 200 mg per dl plus symptoms. So if any person is falling in any of the one criteria, any of the categories, either his fasting blood sugar level will be equal to or more than 126 mg per dl, or casual blood sugar level should be equal to or more than 200 mg per dl along with symptoms, or 2 hour postprandial blood sugar level will be more than or equal to 200 mg per dl but plus symptoms. So if a person is falling in any of the category, we can call him diabetic person. Now, what is normal blood sugar level? So normal blood sugar level is 70 to 110 mg per dl. If any person's blood sugar level is 110 to 106 mg per dl, we can call him pre-diabetic. Pre-diabetic is a condition when a person is neither normal nor he is diabetic. So he is just on the border, on the verge of going to be diabetic. So he can, if he will manage his glucose level, his body active by different activity, food habits, so he can come back to the normal. If he is not going to manage it, he can be diabetic. So that is called pre-diabetic. Now we are going to see symptoms of diabetic mellitus. The most common symptom of diabetic mellitus is polydipsia, then polyuria, then polyphagia, body pain, then multiple urination at the night, increased hunger, so they are this one, then slow wound healing, then numbness, then weight loss. These are different kind of sign and symptoms of diabetes mellitus. So we'll see one by one why these signs and symptoms are coming. So first is polydipsia. As we are knowing that in case of diabetes mellitus, in our blood we are having too much of glucose. So high amount of glucose is there. Normally we should have 70 to 110, but in case of diabetes mellitus we are having more than 70 to 110. So as a result of this hyperglycemic condition, we are having more amount of solute. So osmolality of blood will be increasing. To compensate that one, how to compensate that one? So either we have to remove the glucose or we have to add more water. So blood concentration will be the normal. So the one of the thing is we are going to add water. So how to add water? There are one of the important source of water in our body is we can take the water. So because of this high amount of glucose or increased osmolality, our thirst center which is in the hypothalamus starts working, and because of that one we feel thirsty and we drink too much amount of water. So people feel too much thirsty and too much water they take it. So that's why because of higher glucose concentration and increased osmolality, people take more amount of water. That is called polydipsia. Because people take too much amount of water and body cannot retain all those water, because body is having certain limitation that it can have blood of 5 to 6 liter only. So but if you have taken too much amount of water, that water has to go out, and the main route of exit of water is through urine. So because you take too much amount of water, so that water has to go out, and that is in the form of urine. So that's why people go multiple time urinations. So that is called polyuria or multiple mixed urination. And third thing is because your cells are unable to use glucose. Cells are unable to use glucose is like if maximum glucose we are using. So if we use 100 gram of glucose, for example 80 gram, or you can call it 80% of glucose will be used by skeletal muscles and adipose tissue. Rest 20 gram or 20% will be used by rest of the body parts. In case of diabetes mellitus, this 80 gram will be not be used, because this 80 gram depends on insulin, and we don't have insulin, or we are having insufficient or inefficient insulin. So this 80 gram will not be used. So the cells of these muscles are feeling hungry. Once these cells will be feeling hungry because they are unable to use glucose, so they send a sensation, they send a message to hypothalamus where hunger center is there. So people feel hungry. So that is called polyphagia. So that's why because of this one only, doctors suggest diabetic persons to take small bites, small foods, but multiple times. So you will not feel hungry. Body pain is once your cells is not getting glucose. So what they will do, they will go for some other source. So they will go for usage fat. So fat burning will be there. Normally fat deposition occurs in adipose tissue mainly. So once fat burning starts and fat burns and gives you lactic acid, so that starts giving you body pain, muscle pains. So that is body pain. Now wound healing or frequent infections is going to occur because of that one. Because why? Because we are having too much amount of glucose, and normally we are knowing that infections occur in a place where water will be there, moisture will be there, and glucose will be there. Glucose is the easiest source. So in our body, glucose is also there, and moisture, water is already there. So infections causes very frequently, and if we will have wounds, so that wound will not be cured. Another reason of slow wound healing is there we are having microvascular complications or macrovascular complications. So angiogenesis, new blood vessels formations will be slowed. So not new blood vessels forms very easily. And because of microvascular, macrovascular complications only, different extremities, different organs, peripheral organs, not having any kind of sensation. So that is called numbness. And because of fat burning, it's called weight loss occurs. So these are different signs and symptoms for type 1 or type 2 diabetic mellitus. We are coming to type 1 and type 2. We'll see how it's occur. So the signs and symptoms are polydipsia, polyphagia. These are the important signs and symptoms. If someone will tell 3 important signs and symptoms, so it is called polydipsia, polyphagia, polyuria. Rest others are accessory signs and symptoms. Now see what is the significance of insulin, how insulin do and how glucose is going to be maintained in our body. So like this is the border and this is our the glucose range 70 to 110 mg per dl. There are two situations, there are 3 possibilities. Either body glucose level will be in this range, or in certain conditions it can go up, or certain conditions it can go down. So we'll see all the 3 possibilities. If it is normal, so if blood glucose level will be normal, so body does not produces any hormones. There are 2 hormones which regulates your glucose level. So that is insulin and glucagon. So these are the 2 important hormones. We'll see that one also. Insulin is produced by pancreatic, both our hormones are produced by pancreatic cells. So insulin by pancreatic beta cells and glucagon by pancreatic alpha cells. In a few moments of time we are coming there, we'll see there. So normally think of conditions when glucose level rises. So if my body glucose level rises from 70 to 110 mg per dl, so in that conditions insulin will be produced from beta cells of pancreas. This insulin will go and works on different tissue, especially skeletal, muscle, adipose tissue, and starts using glucose. So high amount of glucose, when glucose rises, insulin will be released. Insulin works on this tissue, and these tissue use glucose. Once glucose will be used, glucose level will come down and will come back to the normal. Another condition going down means we becomes hypoglycemic. In that conditions, glucagon is released by alpha cells of pancreas. These alpha cells go and work on mainly liver and adipose tissue and produces glucose. It produces glucose and utilization will be decreased, and so because of this production glucose level rises, so glucose level come back to the normal level. This is how glucose will be maintained. We will see in the details when we will talk about the endocrinology or different endocrine glands and their functions. But here summary is their normal glucose level is 70 to 100 mg per dl. 3 possibilities: either glucose level will be 70 to 110 mg per dl, or it will be increasing or it will be decreasing. If glucose level increases, body produces insulin, pancreatic beta cells produces insulin. That insulin works on some of the tissue. Those tissue increase glucose utilizations. So glucose will be utilized and body glucose will be decreased. Another condition is when glucose level decreases. So glucagon will be produced from alpha cells. It works on some of the tissue and starts producing glucose. So glucose will be produced and glucose level of body increases. Now so we'll see something about some information about glucagon and insulin. Normally we are having a important organ that is called pancreas. Detail about the pancreas and its secretion we will see in the endocrinology portions. So this pancreas is having mainly two portions. One is called as endocrine portion. Second one is called as exocrine parts. Exocrine parts are called as Acini cells, and this is called as islands of Langerhans. In endocrine portions, we are having 5 different cells. We are having alpha cells, beta cells, delta cells, PP cells. Alpha cells produces glucagon, which increases glucose. Beta cells produces insulin, which decreases glucose. Delta cells produces somatostatin. And PP cells produces pancreatic polypeptide. Exocrine portions produces normally digestive enzymes like trypsin, chymotrypsin, lipase, amylase, and some other things. Detail we will see once we will talk about in endocrinology. So here these are the two hormones which mainly regulates the glucose level, which is responsible for the homeostasis of glucose in our body. Now we'll see the classification of diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is mainly classified into two portions. One is type 1 and second one is type 2. Type 1 diabetic mellitus mainly leads to insufficient insulin, and this mainly leads to inefficient insulin. The main reason how it occurs is this is because of degradation of pancreatic beta cells. So if beta cells will be degraded, so we don't have sufficient amount of beta cells, sufficient number of beta cells, so insulin's production will be decreased. So we don't have sufficient amount of insulin, and once we don't have sufficient amount of insulin, so glucose level will not be decreased in sufficient amount. So that's why hyperglycemia will be occurring. This type 1 is mainly classified into two categories. It is having either it will be immune mediated or it is idiopathic. Immune mediated means because our immune system produces some kind of immunoglobulins against our pancreatic beta cells. So because of those immunoglobulins, pancreatic beta cells has been damaged or degraded. So it is called immune mediated type 1 diabetes mellitus. Idiopathic is where we are not knowing the proper pathophysiology of type in degradation. So that is called as idiopathic. Initially this type 1 diabetes mellitus was called as juvenile onset, because it was thought that this type 1 diabetes mellitus occurs only before the young age. But later on it came to know that it is not a case where it occurs only to the before young age or prematures. It can occur to old person also, it can occur to anyone also. So it's not age related. So nowadays we are not calling it juvenile onset diabetes mellitus. It was also known as insulin dependent. diabetes mellitus. As we are knowing that it is insufficient insulin is there, so body does not have sufficient amount of insulin, so the person for their insulin requirements is going to be fulfilled by the insulin from the outside. So they take insulin injection, so body's requirement will be fulfilled by external insulin. So that's why they depends on external insulin, so it's called as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. But nowadays we are not using this term also more frequently, so we are using only type 1 diabetes. Similarly, in type 2 diabetes mellitus, it is inefficient insulin. So we are having sufficient amount of insulin, no degradation of pancreatic beta cells, so beta cells are intact, and only thing is insulin is either not able to reach to the pancreas or not able to bind to the receptors. So that's why it is inefficient insulin. So it was also called as, when it was known as juvenile onset, it was called as adult onset. But we are not using this term also, because that is not the case. Type 2 diabetes mellitus can occur into the baby, and type 1 can occur into the old person also. It was also called as insulin independent or non-insulin dependent. Non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. But again, now we are not using this term. When we are seeing type 1 and type 2, these are the major classes of diabetes mellitus. Roughly, if you see the prevalence of diabetes, 90 to 95% cases, the type 2 diabetes mellitus will find. Only 5 to 10% cases we can find type 1 diabetes mellitus. Other than these two important type of diabetes mellitus, type 1 and type 2, there are some other types of classes of diabetes mellitus where diabetes can occur. So we'll see that one. That is normally classified into other classes of diabetes mellitus. Actually, this classification was given by American Diabetic Association. So the third category, we are having a broad class that is called as other types of diabetes mellitus. In other types of diabetes mellitus is, the first class is where genetic defects will be there in the beta cells. So it's, the first thing is genetic defect in beta cells, and example is MODY, maturity onset diabetes of youngs. Second is because of genetic defects in insulin action. Third is because of viral infections. Some of the virus damaging beta cells, like example mumps, cytomegalovirus. These are the virus which damages pancreatic beta cells. So if pancreatic beta cells will be damaged because of this viral, so it can lead to diabetes mellitus. Then next, normally if you see the endocrinology, insulin is the only hormone which decreases the glucose level. Rest all other hormones increases glucose level. So if we are having some endocrinological disorders where hormones will be in the higher amount, so because of other hormones hypersecretions, glucose level rises, and that's called diabetes. So that is called as endocrinopathies, which leads to diabetes mellitus. Like some of the hormones are cortisol, epinephrine. These are the hormones, glucocorticoids. So those are the hormones which increases glucose value. So if body will have high amount of cortisol, high amount of epinephrine or glucocorticoids, so glucose level rises, and that leads to hyperglycemia situations. Then we are having, if drugs, toxins which can damage pancreatic beta cells, and that leads to less insulin production. So examples are Vacor, nicotinic acid. These are the drugs or toxins which damages pancreatic beta cells. And another class is gestational diabetes mellitus. This gestational diabetes mellitus is a diabetes when diabetes occurs during the pregnancy. So during pregnancy, because of hormonal, lot of hormones is going to be secreted, and because of those hormonal changes, diabetic hyperglycemic conditions occurs, which affects mother as well as the fetus. So as a result, obese fetus will be there, obese babies will be there. So this is the gestational diabetes mellitus is a conditional. Only during the gestation period, mother will have diabetes mellitus, and that affects the baby as well as the mother. Once gestation parturition occurs, baby has been taken birth. So again, glucose level, hormone level will be the normal, and diabetes mellitus gone off. So that's called as gestational diabetes mellitus. We'll see how this insulin level affects your glucose. So if this is our cells, detail we will see in the insulin actions, how insulin will be released and how insulin will be working. But just for summary, glucose is a molecule which does not directly come to the cells. So glucose entry is through a channel. So that transporter is called as glucose transporter in a small form, short form we are calling it GLUT. We are having GLUT 1 to GLUT 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we are having different types of GLUTs. Those GLUTs located at different cells. So it is a tissue specific. From all these 14 different types of GLUTs, only GLUT2 depends on insulin. So glucose entry to the cells, to a cells through glucose transporters other than 2 does not require any kind of insulin. The glucose entry to the cells through this glucose transporter to number 2 GLUT4, not GLUT2, GLUT4 requires insulin. So GLUT4 is the only glucose transporter which requires insulin. That is a channel. GLUT is a channel. Just talk about GLUT4. So GLUT4 is a channel which normally closed. If we are having sufficient amount of insulin, sufficient amount of effective insulin, gate will be open and glucose will enter into the cells. But if we don't have sufficient amount of insulin and we don't have effective insulin, gate will not open, this glucose channel will not open, and glucose entry will be affected. So glucose will not enter into the cells. This is how what is diabetes mellitus, its classification. Now we'll see its base summary, some of the complications, detailed complication we'll see in the next lecture. So complications, normally its major complications are it leads to retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, it causes diabetic foot, it causes macro and microvascular complications. Retinopathy is where cataract and eye will be damaged. So it leads to blindness because eyes will have minor capillaries. So because of this microvascular complications, those cells will be damaged. Neuropathy is where brain cells will be not stop functioning. Nephropathy is kidney damage, or kidney failure, diabetic footage, the wounds or lower extremities, lower peripheral tissue will be damaged, will have wounds and it will be damaged. And not only this, the tissue where micro and macrovascular complications, capillaries are there, that will be affected. So we'll see complications in two ways. One through this pathophysiology, second one is biochemically how it occurs. So that will be in the next lectures. This was just a brief introduction about diabetes, its classification, how it occurs, and how to whom call the diabetic. Complications, insulin actions, and pancreatic. So pancreas we'll see in the endocrine portions when we'll talk about endocrinology. Insulin secretion, functions, and diabetic complications we'll see in the further lectures. Hope you have understand it. You have liked the video. Please press the like button. If you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it so that you will get all the notifications. If you want, you can press the bell button also. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.